Hey everyone, Tactics here, nearing the end of my Keystone Legend Guide series, where this time we're going to be going through a Motherlode run, showing off the route that we did, as well as some neat skips that you can use to help avoid some of the most dangerous trash mobs in this dungeon. Now, because it does involve those skips, it is going to be a little bit more complex than my general pug-friendly route, but I'm still going to try and avoid doing anything super crazy, instead leaving that for my advanced dungeon guide series aimed at players pushing for the 0.1% title, which is going to release later on in the season. So if that is something you're interested in, make sure you are subscribed. Otherwise, let's get into the first pull here, which is pretty standard, almost kind of conservative. Even you could easily add like the second pull of this route into this first pull as well if you wanted, just these first 3 packs initially. But this is kind of similar to what I was saying at the start of the workshop guide, where you can do this big pull. You probably will in the higher keys, but it's just not necessary in order to time keys that will get you Keystone Legend in that bracket, like the 10 to kind of 14 bracket. So for safety, I'm not going to recommend it, but you can feel free to adjust this. So we do the first pull here with the first 3 packs. Like I said, you can do CCs on the off-duty laborers throw wrench cast. Remember, that targets the first person that gets into combat with them. And if it gets stopped with a CC, it does just not recast. So it's still a true stoppable ability. We're going to deal with this mech jockey, CC on that. Accidentally pull some revelers. Classic. Looks like they got ignited. Classic. Watch out for pennies if you do pull revelers, because these pennies are quite dangerous, and obviously the revelers are not really worth count, so you want to do your best to avoid getting these guys as much as possible. And then we butt pull the pack, part of our second pull, so we're just going to chain, and this is our second pull here, these 2 packs. So again, if you want to do that giant first pull, add this pack, add this pack. There's not that many kicks, right? You have the refreshment vendors, which can be stopped, and then you have the 2 fan of knives guys, which have the poison, which you do need to interrupt. So a few kicks, but a few of them can be stopped as well. Beyond this pack, it's just these 2 packs here. You're going to see these guys are near all these revelers, so I just tag it with a ranged ability, and as long as I'm the one as the tank tagging it, these laborers will throw their wrench at me because I started the aggro, and then they'll just walk into the pack and I can pick them up there. So a little tip there to both make sure the wrenches are hitting you and also prevent these rowdy revelers from aggroing. Then we just back up because our mech jockey has escaped and is attempting to murder us. Something to be careful about here, because you see we do almost die. These hired assassins are quite dangerous. You really want to make sure you have assigned stops to every single cast of Fan of Knives. Usually, especially in this key level, they're only going to get like 1 channel off. Maybe they get 2, but usually 1. So as long as you assign 1 CC to stop them, because we eat almost the full duration here of it, and we're getting owned. Like, we're getting really owned. So that is like the most dangerous thing in this area outside of the mechs. So let's talk about that. Basically, this route is trying to skip as many mechs as possible, and so with this route, without using Shroud, we're going to skip all the mechs but 1. Sorry, excuse me. And how we do that, let's fast forward here. There's a little parkour spot. You can go up this way, so you can walk by here, pass all these revelers, don't aggro them, jump up on these boxes, and you're aiming to jump right here. And if you manage to land right here, you don't need to jump anymore. You can just walk up this. It's actually a very easy skip to do. Most of the people in this group are doing it for the first time. And, you know, it takes like a few seconds. But what this lets you do is, see, you walk right by this peacekeeper, and you can walk up here between these peacekeepers. He's doing his patrol. You can hug this wall, skip all of these guys, and then you just need to wait for this peacekeeper patrol, because you can see he just run along this patrol. So now I could go. We have distract. I think someone aggroed the pack because they weren't hugging the wall. So we're resing them, but you just need to watch this guy. He just runs back and forth. We have a rogue, so we could distract him on the far end of the patrol, but otherwise you can just walk straight through here and avoid everything. And then from here, what it would be is, it would be this left pack into this right here, and that's just an extra mech jockey, a refreshment vendor, and then the assassin in the pack. I autopilot this and tag this adult thug, because this has been what I've been doing in pug routes. You don't want this adult thug pack. This is going to make us go over count because we're doing the rest of the route normally. It also +1s our pull count, because I don't want to pull all this into the big guy. That would be very scary. So something to keep in mind. This is our 1 peacekeeper that we're pulling, so you want to be very careful. Some tips about this peacekeeper. 1, obviously you want to use a tank defensive for his big hit coming up here. You really want to make sure you're on top of that Fan of Knives, because it overlapping with the charge shield is deadly. You can pop defensives on this. You can also kite this out, because if he is not auto attacking you, he does not chain lightning to your allies. So little tip like that, kind of similar to the right side mini boss in Priory of the Sacred Flame. If he's not autoing you, he's not spawning flame circles. Very similar. Obviously, kiting can be annoying for some melee DPS, so keep that in mind. But otherwise, if you just are using group defensives on the one cast, like, we have enough damage here to be able to nuke him before his second cast, and at worst, it would be slightly after his second cast, right? So he's always the prio target. Have your group defensives planned, and you'll be okay. Crowd Pummeler boss. We end up lusting this. You could probably lust the first pull, especially if you end up making it bigger. You could also lust that pull we just did, because it's probably going to be more dangerous on the hierarchies in this boss. This boss is actually kind of free. I think this bloodlust is kind of bad, to be honest with you. I think we might have just forgotten the bloodlust. For the bombs, we just kick all of them in. One thing you can do as well is you can milk the last bomb. I think both these guys thought they weren't going to be the last bomb, so they just kicked it. But that last bomb you can kick late, and that'll extend the damage amp on the boss, and that's pretty valuable. Otherwise, I don't think there's really a lot to talk about for this boss fight. It's like pretty easy, actually. So little min-max with the damage amp, but that's it. And we're going on, and this area of the dungeon is definitely an area that I think has been farming people a bit. It's definitely very, very dangerous. So let's get into it here. The extractor are the most dangerous mob here. These are what is limiting you. You do not want to pull more than one extractor at a time because of the AoE damage that they pulse out. At the same time of this pulsing AoE damage, they spawn a ton of circles. So how do these circles work? Let's look. Basically, these circles are going to come out, and you're going to see there's some player baited and some random. That's kind of how this generally works, is it's partially player baited, partially random. So what you can do is you can kind of have like a ranged area further back a little bit, as well as a melee area where the melee are stacked, and melee can just kind of rotate around the mobs together, and this will spawn circles together, as you can see here. And what we got cut off by here was that someone spawned a circle on the other side of where we were dodging. I can rewind and show you. But basically, if we were all together, this circle right here, we would have been able to continue rotating. But because someone spawned this circle here, it all of a sudden is now problematic for us. And we have to start running backwards in a way. And this is where people start getting into problems of potentially aggroing that. So the other thing too is we probably could have pulled this like a little deeper, like maybe towards here a little bit, just to give us this area down here, this area up here, and a little bit more space here to play with. So something to keep in mind. We're then going to go across here, have a little bit of a recovery pull. This is just a bunch of earth shapers. There's 3 of them, so just keep kicks on them. They don't spam cast, so it makes life a little bit easier. You can see they have a decently short cooldown, but it's not like a spam cast. So just keep as many kicks as you can. Some bolts are going to go out, like you saw there. You can use AoE stops when you're out of kicks, like we are right now. AoE stuns, and just cleave these guys down. And then once these guys are down, we're going into our second and final drill of this area, only pulling 2 drills, but we need a little bit of extra count in this area from this pack here. Plus, the patrol often butt pulls, in my experience as well, so just easy to get rid of it. Going up here, same deal as before, but you now have a lot more space to play with, right? Because all this is cleared, so you have a lot more room to kite, and kite like straight backwards. You can kite around in a circle, like I recommend, especially if your melee is stacked. It makes it a little bit easier. Just watch it again. Get tank baited. Rotating in a circle, rotating in a circle. Perfect, right? Just like that, makes it a lot easier. Then we're going into the area with the Stone Furies. We got 3 Stone Furies in this pull. The biggest thing is if you have like a Spell Steal or something, or a Purge, you can avoid kicking these tectonic barriers, or at least some of them, as many as you can purge. You can see instantly purged. And then we just kick the Furious Quakes. And that's the biggest thing. See, we don't have kicks for it, so we use a stop on it until we are good to kick. Boom. Use stops. Then we have kicks back again. That's how we handled that. And you can save your kicks again by not kicking these if you have someone willing to purge those off. Then we have the mini boss. This guy's pretty scary for tanks, especially. He stacks up this pretty nasty bleed. So if you don't have a bleed cleanse, you may need to actually kite when the boss does this ability. This massive slam, it always random ranged, then does a circle. So this is kind of your opportunity as a tank player to drop your bleed stacks if you need to. You see, I could have played a little bit further and I would have dropped my stacks, but I ended up not being able to drop them there. But I have dwarf, luckily, being a dwarf warrior, so not a big deal. But like, see, like this situation, I had 1 second left on my bleed. If I was a few steps further, I could have dropped it. And this is where it starts to get pretty scary because of the overtime and rage buff. So if you have a soothe as well, you really want to rip it specifically on the mini boss. The mini boss is the highest priority enraged dispel target, so that is who you would want to be soothing here. I think our paladin taunted to eat some stacks. That's good. But we're gonna get our resin here, and we're gonna go after the next boss here, which I've had some questions about, mostly in terms of how we're using our CC on this boss fight. So initially, we're going in here. Our comp is one range, so we know exactly who's going to be fixated. So as always, we're going to walk in here. We're going to hit the one that is empowered, and we're just mostly going to try and keep slows on the second one. She's not working right now, which is kind of far away. I think we're going to move over at some point and get it in. Yeah, there we go. So now it's in on the group. We could have done this earlier, so our mage didn't have to run around in a circle, but we're doing it now, so better late than never. And mostly at this point, we're just going to try and like control this ad with slows and stuff under the boss. Like for our comp, right, crippling poison is really great. I want to say there's monk slows potentially. Thunderclap is slowing it because it's in there, right? So there's a lot of like passive slows you can keep on some of these mobs as long as they get under the boss. And you can use things like knockbacks and stuns as well to keep it locked down under the boss. In terms of tank damage, obviously you have this stacking bleed from the empowered one. So again, bleed cleanses are great. Otherwise, just defensive at high stacks. And it's mostly just about, we're not focusing this unempowered Earth Rager. We're just kind of keeping it locked down. We have a mobile range so that he's kind of fine to kind of chill around here and cast his spells, and he'll blink away, he'll CC it, he'll knock it, he'll plant for a bit as he needs to, and then when he needs to move, he can move. But we're not really focusing it very much, and we definitely could be doing a better job at locking it down with more slows than we are doing. But it's not really needed to hard CC them with anything at all. And then I think it's at this point where they're both going to get cleaved down. Now, ideally, if you can manage it, depending on how your damage goes, what you'd want to do here is you'd want to not kill this mob for like 15 seconds, and you'd want to kill it just after their Call Earth Rager cast, because he will only spawn up to 2 mobs with this cast. So you see it coming up in just a few seconds. Because there's none alive, he's going to spawn 2, but if there was one, even if it's really low health, he would only spawn 1, which would let you have only 1 mob up, which would be very, very valuable because your range would get to plant. So again, it kind of depends on your range comp. Mages can kind of sprint forever. BM hunters can kind of sprint forever. If you're playing a less mobile range, you definitely need to make sure you are babysitting that mob with better stuns and slows and stuff like that, and keeping it under the boss as much as possible. Ring of Peace is great. The range can hang out in Ring of Peace. And then we get to this next area, which was a banned area in like BFA, but with the changes Blizzard has made to this dungeon, this is like one of the freest trash areas in the dungeon, in my opinion. And so we're just going to go wild. We're just going to pull almost all of the area, honestly. Something to keep in mind, Echo Blade, it's a line attack at a player. Make sure you are, kind of spread out. You're not cleaving that Echo Blade. That can be one of the dangerous things in this area, especially, in combination with the Alchemists and their random target poison attack. You got a lot of poisons. Echo Blades go out. You're in danger if you cleave that. Now, in terms of how the pulls work in this area, it's very freeform. You kind of just chain pull this whole area based on cleave and stuff like that, like a bunch of more rats, get them in, get some more funnel into these guys, could do some more damage, bigger AoE pull, stuff starts to dying, let's chain some more stuff, got a couple more alchemists, got another mastermind we can get in. The Mind Lash is not super scary, you just need to watch out for the tornadoes they throw out, because that's going to be some area denial that you want to avoid. But it's really like, just pull as much as you're comfortable with at a time in this area, and do not be afraid to chain pull. If the pack's getting smaller, stuff starting to die, so you have a higher health mob that's much higher health, like we saw previously. I think we're going to cleave these down and do another pull, because the next one has a lot of alchemists in it, and we don't want like a 7 alchemist pull. But chain pull as you're comfortable here. I note that in the MDT route, which I'll link down below as well. Just like pull as much as you're comfortable, chain pull as much as you want, as long as you're pulling all the mobs that need to be pulled, you're fine here. And like I said, we are going to be slightly overcount in this area because of that 1 pack I pulled earlier on in the dungeon. So don't worry about us being a slightly overcount. You still want to pull like all the things we're pulling here. I can even like fast forward this a little bit faster because there's not too much to talk about in this area, right? It's like keep kicks on the goos. So if you have pull this many alchemists, you want to make sure that you have enough kick coverage to actually cover this. We are a 5 kick comp, so that is allowed in our comp, but not every comp has 5 kicks. If you have obviously like an AoE kick, like a Demon Hunter Sigil or Boomkin Beam, that can also cover some of that. But again, pulling more stuff. We got an extra weapon tester here, I think. Triple weapon tester can also be scary, especially if you're cleaving these echo blades. You really want to make sure, like that one cleaved, hit 3 people. Be careful with the echo blades. And then we just have our last pull before the boss, the double mastermind. Again, not very scary. Like most of the trash mobs are very tame in this area in terms of their damage output, both in terms of tank output and group output. What you're maybe scared about again in the pull like this is if the Mind Lash kind of picks the same person on 2 guys, and then also like they get comboed by getting picked by some other abilities here. But even then, like it's not really that scary. You're mostly worried about getting clipped by a tornado with something else happening. And that brings us to the next boss here. Another pretty straightforward boss. Tanks, you want to be aware, again, this boss hits you for fire damage. It does not melee you. It hits you for fire damage. There's no cast time. You just get hit. So on pull is very dangerous for the first like 10 or so seconds until abilities start to happen. And then you take about 1, maybe 2 auto attacks between each ability from then on throughout the rest of the fight. So just be aware of that and make sure you have like magic mitigation, accordingly. On the monster, you see I pull with spell block as a warrior, right? Because I know I'm going to immediately be taking fire hits. In terms of positioning, this positioning is on purpose. Let's rewind real quick. I recommend tanking towards this area initially because you always want to dodge when you see these beams go out. You want to dodge towards the bigger area because these puddles grow. So if you had pulled the boss to the start of the platform, you would have been in this tiny area. You would have way more movement. So generally starting towards the middle, I think, is better. You can have, drop all your puddles around. You're going to be left in this little area here. And now you can start pushing this away with your propellant blast. So the one propeller player is out here pushing this stuff away. And then everyone else is going to be on the other side of the boss. Again, propellants, pushing stuff away. Pretty straightforward fight. And between every cast, you can see I'm taking hits from the boss. So between every single cast. So be aware of that as the tank. Otherwise, there's not too much to talk about for this boss. And we were a little bit more centered, probably would have been better, but we got lucky with the selection of where the goo's dropping, so put it in we got low movement there, but not too much to talk about there. Yeah, so we're just talking about what the skip looks like in this area. We don't want to skip this. We were just talking about it, but basically you can mind soothe or combat the threat reduction CC, like imprison this guy, and you can walk right here to skip both of these. Again, not in the route, but something we were talking about that could be interesting in the advanced route. We are going to butt pull this. So we're going to do this anyways. We needed to pull one of these war machines anyways. I need these specialists though for the count because we were planning to pull this guy. So I'm gonna step up and grab them. In terms of these war machines themselves, it's this charge shot that you're scared of course. So you want to rotate through things like personal defensive, things like group defensive CDs, things like healing throughput CDs. Those are the 3 things you want to work through because this cast happens quite frequently and there's like no way you're going to get away with like less than 2 of them and probably going to be more. We're cleaving down the remainder of this pack, and now we're going to do a bit of a skip here, where we're going to shoot the gap between the war machines. The war machines have true sight, so Shroud doesn't help you, they're lieutenants, so Soothe doesn't help you, they're machines too, so that wouldn't help anyways, but you can just skip them anyways. So what we're going to do here, after we kill this pack, is we're going to sneak past these ordnance specialists. You can also, if you have like a Mind Tooth, have like an Imprison, you can just use that, but you don't need to. You could actually just walk here and skip it. And we need to shoot the gap between them. They have a pretty small aggro radius, boom, right in the middle. And that's not even a good patrol, by the way. Like the patrol can be way better. I'll rewind just to show you again. But like this is like a kind of a bad patrol for our timing because this guy can be way further this way and this guy could be like there even more. So on a bad patrol, we still shoot the gap and make it. So that's a pretty good skip. And like I said, the Shroud is cosmetic. They have true sight, so the Shroud doesn't help you on them. You would just want to be careful with the mines. So just be aware of that. And speaking of the mines do give count. So like I said, we are going to be slightly over count here, but you do need to pull like I think 5 total mines in this area. So you pull like 3 with the first pack and 2 with this pack, because the mines do give a little bit of count here. So that is in the route as a note. So make sure you are watching and you are pulling enough extra mines. So these crawler mines that are spawned by the war machines do not give count, but the mines that you aggro on the ground here do give count. So something to be aware of. Again, pretty dangerous pull here, but you want to line up CDs. And again, just a similar thing. When the war machines are casting their AoE damage, their charge shot, you want to rotate through defensive CDs. You want to rotate through healing CDs. You want to rotate through personal defensives. And you don't want to overlap them very much because there's quite a bit of damage. And you want to focus one of them down earlier like we did there, just to get rid of 1/2 of the charge shot damage. That brings us to the last boss here, where immediately you get these Boomba bots that go out. You want to watch where they're going, and you want to go to a safe place. So the safe place is one of these corners here. You can see I think my charge is on the wall. Move in. Move to the safe place early. We could have done it earlier here. I think I got baited. Yeah, I definitely got baited by this guy. I, for some reason, thought the corner was safe, but I'm just bad instead. So just make sure you move the boss as soon as you can. He also is kind of, doesn't move very well. So keep that in mind. But, as soon as these guys shoot, you want to just keep an eye on them, see where they're going to go, and adjust accordingly. Gatling gun, if possible, pointing towards the wall. We see the movement happening. I can immediately adjust. You see where it's going to be on us. We're going to go in this corner here. Now it's going to be safe. You can take the missile out to the corner as well. Again, we're like a heavy melee comp, so sometimes it's going to attack melee people, which is a little bit weird, but it is what it is. Remember, you can also use combat drops on the missile, but when that happens, the missile immediately detonates. So if you are like a hunter using Feign, a mage using Invis, make sure you get away. The missile is not on the melee anymore, and then you combat drop to drop the missile. Otherwise, you're going to cleave everyone in melee. Again, a big thing, pointing this Gatling gun towards the wall here so that we have enough room to dodge the missiles. And then we have the intermission here. Aim at one Sky Scorcher immediately, by the way. So you can see all of our damage goes into the closest Sky Scorcher as soon as he spawns. And we're focusing it down because, kind of like the charge shot guys before this, if you kill one of them, you've eliminated 50% of the damage in this phase. So that is very, very valuable. And now it becomes infinitely safer. What you're scared of is this first drill smash here. When it goes off, you can see, because you've got 2 guys still shooting here and the big AoE hit. So you can see we got Rally running for this. We had Mass Barrier as well. And potentially we had Diva Ore. No, we used that earlier. So we used a couple group CDs there because that is the scariest overlap of this fight, I would say, in terms of overall group damage and the potential for someone to die. That first drill smash with 2 adds. So use defensives there. Otherwise, we're now just back in the boss phase again. You're watching where all the stuff is going. We're going to our safe spot over here. And yeah, there are like some like perma safe spots. I don't know if they fix those, but there's like some that are just like never in fire, which are kind of interesting. I think Wowhead put out an article with a map on those, but so that's cool. This is what happens if you combat drop or just don't move, by the way. You just eat a giant missile to the face here. Lots of damage. Don't recommend it. But yeah, there we go. That is that dungeon, guys. Hopefully this helps you and your group out. If it does, make sure to recommend it to a friend, leave a like, and subscribe for more content like it. As I mentioned at the start of the video, I'm going to be coming out with an advanced dungeon guide series later on in the season. So if you want all the pro tips and sneaky tricks that people use, make sure you check that series out. Otherwise, shout out to all of my amazing Patreons for their continued support making content like this possible. And I'll see everyone in the next video.